Welcome back. So today we're going to be looking at one of the unique weapons to the Phantom, and that is the CBU 1 and 2. Now, I'm going to be upfront with you. I don't think the CBU 1 or 2 are particularly effective in most situations, but I think they're really cool, and so I wanted to do something to highlight them and show how I've found to use them. Because the thing is, if you go into your bombing table, there's nothing in there for them. So the first thing that you should know is that effectively the CBU 1 and 2, they're not like other cluster munitions that you've used before. You're not dropping a canister that shoots out little skeets that explode or that seek onto targets or do anything cool. They're not like any other cluster bomb you've ever seen before. They're basically rocket pods that point backwards on your plane, and they shoot out little munitions on parachutes, and they go kaboom. Or at least I'm pretty sure they're on little parachutes. They might not be, but their closest employment to me is going to be that of a high drag bomb. And so let's get into how you employ them. So you're going to want to turn your bomb switch to nose tail. I'm not certain if you need it, but with every explosive munition on this plane, I just do it to be safe. After that, you're going to want to make sure that your master arm is on. You're going to want to select the pylons that you're using. You're going to want to make sure that your selector switch on the right is set to dispensers and rockets. Again, these weapons are not like other cluster bombs. They don't count as bombs, so they don't use the bombing selector on that dial. Now, you can pretty much employ them in any way that you see fit. You can use them in direct. My understanding is that you can use them in dive toss, although I've never tried to. I'm pretty sure, I don't have the manual up in front of me, but I'm pretty sure the manual said something about how basically you can employ them using any of the methods. The one that I've found to be most effective for me is to put them into dive laydown. Now, what dive laydown is, it's going to be listed as DL on your dial. And what dive laydown effectively is the same thing in concept as dive toss, but in dive toss, you're going to maintain a dive your whole way through until you release the bombs, and you may reduce that dive, but generally speaking, you're going to be nose down the entire time, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40 degrees, whatever, right? Dive laydown, it uses the same general idea that you look at a target, you use the radar to acquire ranging information to that target. However, unlike dive toss, you're then going to level the plane and fly level and drop your bombs level, which to me makes a lot more sense for using a weapon system like this, where you're basically just shooting them out the back of the plane. So, in order to do that, at least for me, to get the bombs to be accurate, or at least remotely accurate, because even with what I'm going to tell you, they're still not going to be the most accurate thing in the world, you're going to have to open your bombing table. You're going to want to set your delivery mode to DL for dive laydown. Then this part here is really, really important. You need to select a type of bomb. If you pick anything that is not high drag, they are going to end up nowhere near your target. In my experience, I was using the profile for the Mark 82 Balut, and that was working. Beyond that, you're going to want to set the rest of the parameters to be what you expect your run-in to be. So generally, I would set it somewhere around 450 to 550 knots because I'm going to come in fast, and Then I'm going to set my altitude to 3,000 to 3,500 feet because I'm going to want to be relatively low, but, I want to be high enough that they get some coverage and that they don't just hit the ground and, explode. As far as I know, you don't need to put in a parameter for your IP to target. I didn't really bother. I do, however, put in the target altitude, and then you're just going to want to tell Jester. Now, you can set your pattern information if you want to. I didn't bother. I basically just aimed around where I wanted it to start and let it go. Now, once you've got all that information to Jester, and once you've got all your dials where you want them, remember you need the left dial to DL for dive laydown, you're going to want to go down to your switches below that, and you're going to want to set your interval. I usually set it to about 1.2. I believe it's 1.2. It's like 12 or 1.2 or whatever. That's where I set it. And then you're going to want to set the quantity. So you can set this however you want. You can do, I believe, C for continuous, or you can do pairs, or however you want to do it. Me, I just set it to the max, which I believe is 18. I'm pretty sure that will fire all of them, but it will fire as many of them as, you can program it to fire effectively. And so those are my parameters. Beyond that, I'm just going to run in. And so my mission today, the way that I set it up, the idea here is that there's a Cold War gone hot, there's fighting down in the Caucasus. Intel reports that there's a flight of Tu-95s that have been forward stationed at this airfield. The Weasels are on their way back. They've already eliminated most of the enemy AA threat, so now our 4-ship is going to come in and clean up. We have one plane that's going to go in and it's going to hit the runway. We've got another plane that's going to go and run down the taxiway. And then I'm going to go in and hit the bombers. And we have another F4 that's going to go in and try to do the same thing on the other parking area and hit whatever's there. So hopefully, seeing this, you'll get a general understanding of how to use these weapons. I think they're pretty straightforward to employ. There are different versions of their charge in game, and they'll all more or less tell you what they do. Again, I don't have the manual sitting in front of me right now, but there's like 3, 3B, and 4, I believe. There might be one more, but 4 is strictly like anti-infantry, whereas the variants of 3 can be used against lighter vehicles. Regardless of which one you choose, they're not really that potent or that powerful. So if you're going to try to take out like tanks, for example, I do not think this is the correct weapon. But if you're going to go against like trucks or Jeeps, maybe BTRs, but even BTRs might be too thick for these. I'm really not sure. I haven't sat here and extensively tested them. But they're really cool. You can get a nice long stretch of cluster bombs going off with them. I'm just not sure how practical of an application they're actually going to have. I think against something thin-skinned like an aircraft on the ground, they should work fine. I think if you've got trench lines with infantry in them, or infantry in a tree line, I think they're ideal for something like that. But by and large, I think more often than not, you're going to see more effective results just running in with Mark 20s or any of the other CBU options. Obviously, the later, higher number CBU you go, like CBU 87s are going to be more effective than Mark 20s most of the time. So you're going to find more useful results with other options. But at the end of the day, I think that this is a really cool weapon, and everything that we talked about here with dive laydown can be used with any other type of bomb. So you can do this with Mark 82s, you can do this with your Mark 82 balutes, like we programmed this for. Anything that you want to level bomb with for whatever reason, you can do this. The only caveat is that you need to actually be able to look at your target zone. So it's not going to work if your target zone is obscured. You're going to be better off running like a timed release, or you're going to be better off running a release with like an offset IP for something like that. But if you can see your target, like let's say there's a troop concentration somewhere, you know that they have short-ranged AA, so you can't go below a certain altitude, dive laydown might be the way to go. It's not going to be as accurate as dive toss, but you're going to have an easier time keeping above whatever your deck is. So, hopefully you've learned something today. Get out there, kick ass, take names, and win your games.